Good morning and welcome to the Viewscreen. Today is Sunday, February 23rd, and I am your host, Amy Nelson.
And I'm your host, Kelvin Wood. The Viewscreen is your weekly Star Trek magazine show with special guests, features, news, and lots of love for our Star Trek family all around the world.
And today is definitely all around the world. We are starting 1 hour later, so thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, I did panic a moment ago thinking, oh my God, I'm late.
Yes. Man, it's been nice to have this extra hour. I sort of feel like I don't know what to do.
It must be nice for you, obviously starting first thing in the morning, but it's, 6 p.m. at night here over in Britain. So
Yeah.
I've been tapping my fingers, waiting for the show to start all day. But I must comment on this logistic of temporal mechanics in that we've got 4 different time zones represented here on the show today, from the UK to Australia to 2 different time zones in the US. So I guess saying good morning, good evening, good afternoon, it's all out of the window. Some people are on a completely different day.
Yes.
How have you been this week, Amy? What's been going on?
Well, if I stay off social media and Facebook, what doesn't remind me of this is where you were 1 year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago, not on the Star Trek cruise. It's a little painful, but I sure have been enjoying all the messages and all the love. Wish you were here, missing you. So hugs and loves to everyone out there on the cruise. Mwah.
Absolutely. In continuing the talk about time difference, so over on East Coast in Miami, it must be like 1 p.m. now. So it's literally embarkation time. So people will be getting on board the Star Trek cruise.
Yeah.
Oh, it's hard. I did not expect the FOMO to be this bad today. To the point where I'm thinking Councillor Troy of feelings aren't positive or negative. It's what you do with those feelings. And I'm thinking, no, I'm just jealous. That's no good. I wish everyone a lovely time.
Yes. We wish we were there.
Yeah.
Maybe again in the future.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Can we just comment on last week's season premiere? I would just love to thank everybody who has watched us on Catch Up. We had some fabulous numbers. One of our most highest viewed ever episodes on YouTube for season 3, episode 1. So thank you to everyone who joined us live last week, and thank you to everyone who watched us later.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the chat was so fun. We had a lot of participation. We launched our new comm badge giveaway for this season. Like, there was a lot going on, and so grateful. To our viewers and to our listeners who checked out the show. It really means a lot to us.
Absolutely. If you're online live today, please make sure you drop some comments there in the chat, and we'll be sure to see if we can say hi, include you, ask some questions of our guests. We'd love to actually get you guys involved as we are delivering the show live.
Yeah, and please go ahead and like this video, subscribe, and share, please, out there on the socials so we can spread the word. It really does help others to find the show.
It does indeed. So this week, we have our special online week. We are going to be focusing the theme of the episode to online. So let's see what we have on today's show. So Kristin makes her season 3 debut. She returns with the news. Hello, my love. Welcome back.
And we are bringing from Australia, Davey Willet here to talk about his bargain bin Gaymer and Star Trek video games.
Morning.
And finally, Amy, we're joined by royalty. We have Robin with us, who is the queen of memes all over social networks. Everyone's going to know Robin and your material, so we're delighted to have you. Hey, Robin.
Hello.
Yes. What a packed show. So excited. I'm loving our themes that we were having each week too. So that's all Kelvin, you guys, just so you know.
I like a theme. I like things tidy in my mind. Okay, so let us begin. So let's head over to the newsroom and see what Kristin's got for us this week. Hello, love.
Hello. Hello.
Well, Kristin, welcome to season 3.
How is it already season 3? Literally, my tiny little mind is blown by that. But here we are. It's phenomenal. I'm so excited to be back. I'm excited to see what comes out over these next few weeks for news-related content. I don't want to blame everything on politics, but it seems like everyone is worried about like World War III, and there's not enough room to talk about upcoming Star Trek news. Can we please prioritize moving forward that Star Trek is more important and everyone just needs to calm down?
I would really like it if World War III didn't start until we've had season 3 of Strange New Worlds.
Oh, yes.
I do agree with that. I do agree with that.
Thanks.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, still no release date for that. So
No.
we're sitting over here going, hello, we know it's done. It's filmed. Let's veet people. We are dying over here.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway.
So, Kristin, you've had another season with us on All Good Things over the last couple of months. So this is your return to live streaming.
It is.
How are you feeling?
Got to wake up a little bit earlier and put on some sort of a face. Otherwise, I'll be all Klingon up in here, just rolling out of bed otherwise. So it's a little bit more work, but I love the unpredictability of live programming. I think it's so much fun. It's so organic. And I really enjoy the conversations that spur from the view screen. I'm a talker. Everybody knows that. So yes.
Brilliant. Right, let's have a look at what you've got for us this week, please.
Let's have a look. Honestly, there wasn't a lot of news this week. So this will be a real quick segment with just a few little anniversaries and birthdays and stuff. So, of course, 58th birthday today. 58! To A Taste of Armageddon, which was season 1, episode 23 of the original series. I know the original series is very hot and cold with this particular group of people that do these shows. Christos, I'm looking at you. Wink. But A Taste of Armageddon, I thought is so ahead of its time because it is about that virtual war and the virtual where they're tallying their victims, but no one is actually physically hurt until like the Enterprise is now registered as a victim and all chaos goes loose. So this is one of those original episodes that really stands up 58 years later. And it's spooky how like they could tell the future. They could see where we were going because online gaming is huge. And these types of situations where you have giant teams, and maybe Davey will bring that up later in the show, talking about, this online gaming world and obsession that some people have. And this kind of, foretold that this was where we were going. So anyway, 58th birthday, Taste of Armageddon. If you're lazing around today on a Sunday or a Monday in Australia, curl up on the couch and check this episode out.
That would be a great episode to have on our Control series on All Good Things. So making a mental note of that one.
Oh,
there we go. Oh, Amy's grabbing a pen.
I am.
I love it. Making a mental note for me does nothing because that gets erased really quickly. We have another little anniversary coming up today. And sorry. Rewind. No, go ahead. I forgot. I put my meme of the week in here. Very intimidated having Robin here because I love my meme of the week. But now we have like the meme queen, and I'm just sort of like, well, here's my little contribution. And my favorite thing in the world is when Star Trek stuff gets applied to non-Star Trek stuff. And this was freaking hilarious. My mind to your mind, my thoughts to your thoughts. That poor woman is just getting pummeled by that elephant. And I couldn't stop laughing at this picture.
Nice. That is classic.
My question is, what did that smell like?
Oh,
Not
Did it just
Pomfar
smell like
week.
peanuts? I have a feeling it didn't just smell like peanuts.
No.
No. Anyway, love elephants. They are beautiful, gentle creatures, except when they're trying to mind meld, and then they just attack your face.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're getting back to some anniversaries. So today, in 1932, Margelle was born. February 23rd. And of course, she passed away December 18th, 2008. I love the story of her and Gene's wedding. So they, on August 6, 1969, they were married in a traditional Shinto ceremony in Japan. They had the priests, the whole thing there, but it wasn't legal because he was still married.
Ooh.
Right? Cue the drama. Thank you very much. So once that was fixed and like the divorce was final, they had their little legal ceremony on December 29th of the same year, but they always used August 6th as their anniversary.
Oh.
So, yes. And she passed away at 76 after a battle with leukemia. But can we just give a shout out to the first officer of Star Trek from the cage? And just woot woot is right, Kelvin. This woman was a force. And when she knew that her time on this earth was short, she made sure to do all the voice filming for the computer so that could be used in perpetuity after she went to the stars. And there is nothing this woman has ever done that I have not absolutely loved. And every time I think of her, I also think of this day 1 year ago, thanks Facebook, Christian and I cosplayed Ryan Loxana from Menage a Trois.
Yes.
Yes.
So good. So good.
This is one of those humans that I just wish could have lived forever.
17 years is a long time ago. It really doesn't seem that long since we lost her.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's funny. I always know how many years it was because she passed just a few months after Justin and I got married. Yeah. So that's how I'm like, oh, this Christmas season is X number of years since we lost Margelle. So yeah.
Well, we do have some comments in the chat. Sean says Gene wasn't much better than Weinstein back in the day. All those guest stars got the casting couch treatment. Majel, Michelle, you name it. So, I mean, I don't know if it's a credit, but I mean, it really had to have been her choice to stay with him.
Yep.
Even though she did know about it, and she did know about all of his philanderings. One of my favorite stories about her comes from Marina Sirtis, and that Majel just like swooped her under her wing and introduced her to how to do conventions and really got TNG liked amongst the fans because she just grabbed him and says, come on, you're doing this. The show hadn't even aired and they were doing conventions because Majel knew how important the fans were. And I just love that.
Brilliant.
I always, this is my theory. I don't know if it's real. I don't know if I'm just making this all up in my head, but Majel was so dedicated to the vision of Star Trek that she was going to stick with Gene so that she could continue to have her influence over the show and be able to make her contribution to this amazing franchise. And I love that.
We'll just read that out for the listeners.
Yeah, so the Delta Flyers podcast the other week, we're talking about how Majel used to throw fabulous parties in her home for the casts of all the Star Trek shows. She used to keep them together as a family. So I think, was it her, like you said, Amy, was it her choice to avoid all that? And I think it was because everything else around her meant more. So, and I think that even gives more of a credit to what she did for Star Trek. And
yeah, agreed.
I don't know if this is a stretch, but I think she did more for Star Trek than Gene did.
Well, she's the voice of Star Trek.
Literally.
They talk about you will live forever and be put into a computer. That is literally what happened to this lovely lady.
She's the schizoid woman.
Yes.
Only she wasn't an ass.
Yeah.
Like no, her was the looker.
So anyway, today was her Earth birthday. But then coming up this week, we have another big anniversary coming up of what I like to call the anniversary of one's journey to the next emanation.
Oh.
And coming up this week on February 27th will be 10 years since Leonard Nimoy passed away. So he died February 27th, 2015. And he passed away, of course, from COPD. Everybody stop smoking. Stop vaping. Stop putting crap into your lungs that is not supposed to be there. That would be what Leonard Nimoy would want to tell you. At the end of his life, he did a lot of fundraising for COPD research. And I have worked with seniors a lot in my life, and watching people struggle with COPD, it is not a fate that you want. Because really what it is, when you hold your breath for a really long time and you can't wait to release it, you never feel that full release of letting go of a breath. It always feels like you're holding in that CO2.
Wow.
And you're always feeling in this state of like choking. So stop smoking. Just no. Anyway, thank you for coming to my TED Talk today. But then former astronaut Buzz Aldrin called Nimoy a fellow space traveler because he helped make the journey into the final frontier accessible to us all. And what a beautiful tribute from someone as amazing as Buzz. So, and I will never forget, I was off on this day. I remember waking up to my phone ringing, and it was Justin. He's standing in line at a coffee shop, and it was on the news. It just hit the TV. And he's like, I need to be the one to tell you this because I don't want you to freak out. He's like, Leonard Nimoy has passed away. And I just remember the tears immediately flowing down my face. And losing him was rough. But yeah, again, but what him and Majel did for this series, because these two were both in the only two that were in the cage, right? So they did so much, and I will always be thankful for what they did for all of us.
Yeah. I remember I was working, I was at West, and I remember it had to have been like third period. It was before lunch. And I had this kid who knew, of course, I loved Star Trek because my classroom was all done up. And he just came walking straight in. And I was like, hey, it's not your period. What are you doing here? And he just came, gave me this hug. And I was like, what's going on? He's like, I'm so sorry, but Leonard Nimoy passed away today. And I was like, I was just so overcome with his concern and compassion for me that I was like, I just cried. But yes, because it's Leonard Nimoy, but man, I will never forget that moment.
No, that's a beautiful moment. I'm tearing up here on this beautiful sunny Sunday morning. I hope that student of yours has had great things happen to them in their life.
Yes.
Because that is a beautiful soul. So thank you for sharing that, Amy. Kelvin, do you remember where you were on the?
No, I was just thinking, God, where was I? I have no memory for real, actual, meaningful things. I just remember Star Trek Fact and Continuity. That's all that's in the old grey matter for me, I'm afraid. I was probably doom scrolling in bed and saw the news. It would have been sad.
Well, we have Sam in the chat says, I had the absolute privilege of being at his last convention, which happened to be on his birthday, and I got to share a slice of his cake.
Wow.
Sam, that is something to carry that for the rest of your life. Was the cake good? Right? I hope it didn't have fondant on it because that always ruins a cake.
Oh, it does.
Okay, next slide we have the only real news is that season 1 of Star Trek Starfleet Academy has wrapped filming. Still, just like Strange New World season 3, there is no official release date. It was technically slated for 2026, but it sounds like they're actually a little bit ahead of schedule. So will they maybe throw us a bone and release it maybe late 2025? I know all of us could use some new content. We need some joy in this freaking world. And we find joy with our Trek. I've been doing a next gen rewatch and simultaneous with the DS9 rewatch and a little Voyager. So I could really use some new Trek. The only new stuff we've had in the last little bit has been the Section 31 movie. The end.
I had a Starfleet Academy premonition the other day. You know how the Doctor from Voyager is in it?
Yes.
So because of the time period here, I just rewatched the episode of Voyager Living Witness, where it's the backup Doctor far in the future. And at the end, he says he just wanted to follow Voyager and get home in his little shuttlecraft. The timings, and if you think it would take the Doctor 100 years to get from the Delta Quadrant back to the Alpha Quadrant, the Doctor, that version of the Doctor, the EMH, could be arriving at the start of Starfleet Academy. The timelines tie up.
See, this is why I'll never be upset that the only thing in your gray matter is continuity.
I don't know people's birthdays or how I was feeling on a particular date.
Well, Amy and I are empaths, right? So that's we live and breathe our feelings. Kelvin, you are the logical one. So, but I freaking love that premonition. That's amazing. Look at this.
Yes. Well, I listened to Tig Notaro's podcast, the Handsome Podcast. If you haven't listened, I thoroughly enjoy it. And the episode that was released this week, she was talking about how filming wrapped up in Toronto. And so, yeah, I'm like, woohoo, it's very exciting.
Yes. I was actually just in Toronto this time last week. And
that's right.
I have to say, it is a beautiful city. If anyone has never been and you're wanting to support Canada during this tumultuous time, I highly suggest taking a little trip to Toronto. Unless you want to come see BC, because let's be honest, it's beautiful, British Columbia. But no, Toronto has amazing culture, amazing food, amazing nightlife, great thrift shopping. Let me tell you. So the fact that it also has a huge presence of filming, and especially Star Trek based filming, because Starfleet Academy was there, Section 31 was there. There's so much to go and enjoy in that city, and it's gigantic. So give yourself time.
I need to get there.
You're working for the tourist board. You're giving out health advice today. Kristin, you're coming at us from all angles today.
I'm just a good old Renaissance woman today, just dabbling in all the different aspects. But no, I've been really on my Canada Proud push extra hard over the last couple of months. So
good.
I gave up my trip to Vegas, which I wouldn't have been mad anyway, because Amy, you were away the weekend that I was going to be there.
Oh, right.
So I gave up my Vegas trip and we rescheduled to go to Toronto. So that means I gave up sun and warmth, and I was under 3 feet of snow in Toronto, and I wouldn't have changed it for anything.
Oh, wow.
Well, should we bring in our other guests?
Yeah. Are we done with the slides? Let's bring in Davey and Robin. And start with you, Davey. What do you think of the news there? Anything to comment on? Anything grab your attention?
Oh, I was just thinking of where I was when I found out about Leonard Nimoy passing, actually. And I mean, it's not a particularly exceptional story, but it's just you remember that moment in time. I can still remember where I was when I found out Lady Di had died as well. Weird things like that. But I was in Sydney, and I can remember we'd been out for breakfast, and we were getting back into, I think it was a hire car. And then I took my phone out for the first time for a few hours, and literally all of my Trek family and friends were messaging me going, "Oh my God, Leonard Nimoy has died. Oh my God, Leonard." And I was a mess for the rest of the day. And I'll always remember that, because it was also that point too where I realized, this is some of our heroes, our childhood heroes will start start vanishing, and that was dark, but yeah.
No, and that's why I have started to say it's not that they're dying; they're moving on to the next emanation.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
We don't know
Love
where
that.
they're going. Maybe they're just going to a lovely new planet.
No.
We don't know. So that's how I'm trying to put a positive spin, because you're absolutely right, Davey. We are going to be in for an emotional roller coaster coming up here soon. So everybody gird your loins.
They're girded. Don't you worry about that.
And what about yourself, Robin? Anything in the news that are grabbing your attention, or are you? But don't let me down. Tell me you can't remember where you were when
No, I don't remember exactly where I was. I think I was just home, and I'm on Instagram a lot. So I think that's how I found out. It was either Instagram or Facebook. And, usually celebrities, passing, it doesn't like really affect me that much, but definitely felt that one. And I remember it was also the first year, 2015 was my first Star Trek convention in Las Vegas. So it was, that's another reason why I remember it so well, is because, in my mind, I thought perhaps maybe I would get to see him, and he passes on, like Kristen says, to the stars, So it was one that like I felt deeply, as opposed to, any other celebrity.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
And what about Starfleet Academy? How are we feeling about that? Are you excited for Starfleet Academy, Robin?
I'm going into it with an open mind, just like even with Section 31, I didn't watch any trailers or anything. I just went in watching the movie. So I think I'm going to take that same approach with Starfleet Academy.
Yeah.
With any new track, I'm always excited about it. I'm hopeful just because it is new track and they're still, taking the time to make it. But just always cautiously optimistic. So yeah, that's how I'm going into it with Starfleet Academy.
Brilliant.
I love it.
You,
I think similar to you, Robin, when they announced Starfleet Academy, I was like, okay, that's cool. But then I had a very similar reaction to Prodigy and Lower Decks. And then they wound up being like two of my absolute favorite Star Treks of the modern era. They surprised me like you would not believe. So, and having Robert Picardo involved is just a stroke of genius. And I'd heard that that theory of yours before, Kelvin. I've seen that flying around the internet a little bit. I think that's got legs, and I think they will absolutely do us a disservice if they don't deliver on that. So I'm keen. I'm interested to see how it goes.
And I mean, that's how I felt about Strange New Worlds, in addition to Prodigy and Lower Decks. Again, I'm not as familiar with Prodigy because it's not really available up here in Canada right now. Streaming anyway. But I remember Strange New Worlds, I was like, ooh, another prequel, another like, ooh. And then I saw I was like, no, I'm hooked. They did it so well. They balanced the seriousness and that deep part of Trek with some really good comedy. So yeah, I have been blown away. I think the only new Trek that I was really not 100% stoked on has been the Section 31 movie. That was just mid. It was a cute movie, but it wasn't Trek.
Yeah. Go and watch our All Good Things review if you really want to hear Kristin's thoughts in great detail.
Davey, that laugh.
Right, Kristin, great to have you back on the Viewscreen. We look forward to being with you for the rest of the season run. But for now, thank you so much. See you a little later.
Bye.
Okay, what have we got next, Amy?
Well, let's bring on Davey Willet to the stage, please. Davey, so grateful to have you on the Viewscreen. You have come into BQN just really amping things up, making things so excited. Welcome, welcome. And you host two of our shows here on the network, Bargain Bin Gaymer and Treksperts Quiz, which both are doing so fabulous. So welcome.
Thank you. And thank you so much for inviting me on in the capacity as the Bargain Bin Gamer host, because I think BQN is so much Star Trek content, which is lovely, but we do have these other little pockets like History with the Szilagys and Bargain Bin Gamer. So it's actually really exciting because Bargain Bin Gamer is actually it's my side project, but it's really getting some momentum behind it now. So I'm excited to talk games today.
Brilliant. You've got a new host with you as well on Bargain Bin Gamer, haven't you? The lovely Mitch has joined you this year.
Yes, young Mitchell has joined. Bless him. He brings a different energy to the show, but it was the right choice to do because it's undergone a number of different iterations. It started out as just these little mini review videos I did myself, and then I started building it into doing some live streams, but there was always something missing. I felt from the show, something that wasn't quite right. So I experimented with it a lot, and wouldn't you know, bringing in a hyper little 20-something gay guy onto the show was was that missing ingredient. Bless his cotton socks.
Well, let's get to see what you are going to talk about.
Yes. So this was an interesting ride. So, Kelvin and I kind of tossed a few ideas around about what I should actually talk about today, and of course we need to tie Star Trek in. So I'm going to take you through a different kind of Star Trek timeline today. We're going to go through the history of Star Trek in video games. This was really interesting for me to research because there was a lot more of them than I thought there was going to be. Kelvin, you've played a couple of Star Trek games in your time, right?
I'm really excited. I haven't gone in and looked at your slides, so I'm keen to see how many of these I actually recognize and play. I used to love games like A Final Unity on the PC and not Armada. There was Star Trek Encounters that became Star Trek Legacy. Interesting title. And I currently play Star Trek Timelines on iOS every single day. I have done since the day it came out. So I wouldn't say I am a gamer, but if it's got Star Trek in it, then I will, have a little look. I enjoyed Resurgence as well. That came out recently. That was a good one. Don't want to steal your thunder. Away you go.
No, that's all right. So, Amy, I'm guessing you've spent a lot of time playing Star Trek video games, right? Hooked into Star Trek Online for the last 10 years, right? No.
Yeah, yeah. I'll be quiet this segment, but please, I will enjoy. But I have not played any video games.
Ooh, there's a challenge. Let's see if we can get Amy into a gamer by the end of this segment.
Well, it's an interesting one to go through. So, anyone out there who is a gamer will know the curse of a licensed video game. So there's a lot of titles here to go through. And there's a thing in video games where when something is licensed to a particular entertainment property like Star Trek, tied to a movie or TV show, it's usually known to be a bit of a cash grab, right? Trying to just, make some money the same way you would selling merchandise. You put something together pretty cheaply and out you go. There are a few of those games in here, especially around about the time that Star Trek was really kind of in its golden era in sort of like the late 90s, early 2000s. But then there's also some amazing gems that are really well remembered and maybe some that haven't aged so well. So there's a bit to get through. So let's start with the first one. And this one really surprised me. I had no idea about this. The first Star Trek game I could find was from 1982. It's a game based on Star Trek the Motion Picture for the Vectrex arcade system. Now, hands up if you ever heard of that. Exactly, right? Those watching on YouTube, you can see on the screen, the Vectrex arcade system was a self-contained little TV monitor with a little controller, and you would plug games into it, and then you would put a little plastic insert into the front of it, which is that little thing you can see on the right there with player 1, player 2, and that would simulate color graphics because it was a black and white system. So it says it's Star Trek the motion picture. It was just a licensed game based on the movie which had come out a little bit earlier. But basically, it's an arcadey shoot 'em up style game. For 1 or 2 players, you travel through space and you destroy Klingon and Romulan ships. As the Enterprise, allegedly, you fly through 9 different space sectors, trying to reach the quote-unquote Klingon mothership, which is in Sector 9. And yeah, you control shields, phasers, dock with space stations to replenish those shields and weapons, but it was pretty basic. Like, you can kind of see on the screen there, the lines were, the graphics are all just colorful lines, or not even, it was just the plastic insert that did the line. So this was surprising. This is the earliest one I could find. Kelvin, have you ever heard of this one at all?
Not at all. No.
No, it was a surprise to me. And so were Vectrex. Peter knew the Vectrex. There we go. I'd heard of the Vectrex as well, Peter, but it was, I was surprised to see this game on it. So we'll move along so throughout the 80s, there was actually quite a few titles that appeared, and these two surprised me as well. So in 1985 and 1986, on PC and Apple II computers, we got the Kobayashi Alternative and the Promethean Prophecy. Now, Kelvin's screwing his face up there. So these two titles were text-based adventures. So anyone who remembers gaming in the 80s on PC, there was a lot of interactive text games like the Oregon Trail and stuff like that, which were basically you were presented with text and you would type in what you were going to do. So you'd type in fire the phases, that kind of thing. And that's what these two games were essentially. So they were kind of like interactive novels, if you will. But they'd be very difficult to play today because, programming at the time was quite limited. So you had to have like a big manual with them to say like what you could type, like what the game would understand and what it would not understand. But these were interesting. So these were both released, particularly the Promethean Prophecy was released in line with the 20th anniversary of Trek, which was happening around that time. And they try to sort of fill in gaps tried to create a bit of hey, this is sort of year 4, year 5 original series stories. The storyline of the game, Kobayashi Alternative, was you had a starship lost in the 145 triangular sector. I found this interesting quote. So the game's author was Diane Duane. And they said that the Kobayashi Alternative is being framed as the successor or supplement to the Kobayashi Maru scenario. Once you know how to die like a hero, that's great. This determines whether or not you can keep your ship alive like a hero, which is much more difficult. This alternative situation tests synthesis, the ability to handle large amounts of data over a prolonged period, to laugh, to avoid crying occasionally, and to put together things that would not be able to handle were you not Starship Captain material, which Diane said in issue 106 of Starlog in May 1986.
I do recognise Diane Duane. I think she's an author of many of the Star Trek novels.
I thought so too, actually. Yeah, it did seem very, very familiar. So yeah, text-based Star Trek adventures. Before we got like proper graphics, we just sat there doing trial and error typing into our Apple II computers. Surely you remember the Apple II computers. We're all old enough here to remember Apple II computers, right? Yeah. To anyone young enough not to remember an Apple II computer, they were definitely nothing like the MacBooks that you're using today.
They weren't cool.
So if we move on, when we started to get some actual graphics, so around 1987 on the Atari consoles and in arcade, we had the Star Trek Strategic Operations Simulator, which was published by Sega. So this was one of the first official Star Trek arcade video games released and was inspired by the Kobayashi Maru simulation scene in The Wrath of Khan. So not exactly a Wrath of Khan game, but inspired by that whole scene at the beginning of the movie. Very standard graphics for the time. They call them, what do they call them? Vector graphics. Vector graphics. So all these kind of like little lines and all that you see are referred to as vector graphics. And Leonard Nimoy and James Doohan actually provided voices for the arcade version because arcade machines had the storage capacity and the power to actually be able to have some limited voice acting on them, which was interesting for me because I thought we weren't going to talk about actual voice acting in any of the games until much, much later, but we were getting it in 1987 in the arcade. And then we also had... There was some scaled back versions of these on the Atari 2600 and the ColecoVision, if anyone remembers the ColecoVision.
And Atari ST was one of the first consoles that I had.
You had an Atari ST? No way.
Yeah, I'm that old. Yeah.
That is one of the oldest. That's like one of the original like Ataris. So that's crazy. Mm-hmm. My first console was a Sega Master System, a little bit later than that.
Oh.
So let's move on to the 90s era. So these might be ones that might seem a little bit more familiar. This is the first Star Trek game I remember. I don't actually remember playing it, but I remember seeing it in magazines because this was around about the time I was starting to get into Trek. So the 25th anniversary game by Interplay was released sometime in 1991. I believe it came out on the Nintendo Entertainment System first and was later enhanced for PC on a CD-ROM edition, which included full voice acting from the majority of the original cast. Now, this one actually says that it was designed almost as a fourth season to the original season, which had... Because it wasn't like a full story from start to end. Each level was its own episode. And there was, I think it was about 7 or 8 episodes to play across the entire game. So you assume the role of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, and a generic ensign. I said on Memory Alpha about this. And basically, you basically go about your different missions. You've got parts on the ship, you've got space battles, you've got away teams, there's mysteries to solve. However, by modern standards, it's very difficult to play. Did you actually play it, Kelvin?
I did. This is my type of video game. This is like the point and click mystery solving, like Monkey Island, those type of games. You collect items, put it in an inventory, they interact. Now, I am getting a bit mixed up with Judgment Rights, which might be a separate game or just a different title for this, but they looked exactly the same as the anniversary edition. And I just remember there was a big scene where you're going around collecting medical ingredients. You have to make them all work together to formulate a hypo spray for McCoy to use. I'm having flashbacks.
And that's one of the criticisms it gets from people playing it in the modern era, because you can actually still buy this game on Steam. The enhanced CD-ROM edition is available to buy on Steam for 14 Australian dollars. I don't know what they're charging elsewhere for it. But it's the fact that games back then did not hold your hand. So if there was a mystery to solve, you were on your own, and things had to be done in a particular order for the game to advance. And what I found really interesting is that a version of this also released on the Game Boy. So there's a screenshot up there, the one up in the top sort of right-hand corner.
I don't recognize that.
That's the Game Boy version of it. Now, you mentioned Judgment Rights there, so if we move on to the next one, Judgment Rights was the sequel or the spiritual successor. So very, as you said, very, very similar. Gameplay's almost identical. And again, playing the PC versions is considered the superior way to play it.
Brilliant. I can hear the music in my head now after all these years.
Wow.
Really
In preparation for today, Kelvin and Amy, if you go on YouTube, there's Let's Play of pretty much every game that we're going to go through today, and it was so fun to go and watch like clips of them, and especially the ones I remember playing and listening to the old music and all that. So a lot of fun.
Brilliant.
Let's move on past this era. So you remember these ones as well. So the 16-bit era, we're moving into the Mega Drive, the Sega Genesis, the Super Nintendo, but also PC as well. So Kelvin, you remember? Did you play Final Unity?
I did. It is, and it remains one of my favorite Star Trek video games. I'm actually sad enough. Someone is sadder than me because they've created this, but they've taken all of the cutscenes from Final Unity, put them all together in a YouTube clip, and you can literally watch it like an episode now. So it's just someone playing the game. But it was really special, and it had the original TNG theme tune on it with visual. And it was just so much higher quality than what you would watch on VHS of actual TNG. It felt like a real step up in graphics. It was rich. But I mean, if you was to look at it now, you'd recoil and go, ugh, what is that? But the storytelling and the problem solving was amazing. When you said earlier about you couldn't reach out on the internet and research what's the next step. You would get stuck. And there was points in this game, I would be stuck there for months, and I would just go away and then come back, and then all of a sudden would get it. There was something to do with playing musical instruments in a certain order to make floor tiles appear, and you had to walk across them. Great game.
Yeah, back then, and Amy, I can remember playing games at this time as well, and you took handwritten notes of what you were doing. And that was the best way. You'd be like, all right, I went here, I did this, I did that. And this was essentially, whereas Judgment Rights and 25th Anniversary were lots of little episodes played out as missions, a Final Unity was a playable episode of TNG at the height of its popularity as well. Featured the entire cast. They are all in it. They all lended their voices to it. And it did. It had an incredible story. And the script was created specifically for the game and was overseen by regular TNG writer, I'm probably going to butcher this, Naren Shankar. Yeah. So it actually had like some actual like TNG oomph behind it in terms of who was writing it. So for the time, it was a pretty authentic TNG experience. It's all around this thing called the Unity device, which is some kind of is it a weapon? Is it not a weapon? The Romulans are after it. The Federation's after it. You could make decisions that would change the way the game goes. And like Kelvin said, probably pretty hard to play today. I think you can only kind of find it through what they call like abandonware, which is basically no one's publishing it anymore. So you've got to go and find old downloadables and hack it together to get it to run. Interestingly as well, Futures Past TNG, which was on the consoles, is kind of the same game. Kinda. Minus all the voice acting, minus all the cutscenes. No graphics nowhere near as good. However, in all the videos I found online, there's a little screenshot up on the screen at the moment where it says press A to transport down. One of the funniest things that everyone mentioned about this game was you could pick your own away team, and you had the core crew available to select. But then there's all these other people who are not from the show. They're just like 1993 versions of Shutterstock images, and they just have like this, like, here's Lieutenant Johnson or Ensign Mary.
Away team on Final Unity, you would drag and drop them onto the transporter pad, and then you would use the cursor on the mouse to swipe up the transporter control. It was so cool. It was like nothing you'd ever done before. And yeah, I was geeking out. I still do.
And finally, we've got Deep Space Nine Crossroads of Time, which was a lot of people don't remember that one very well. That was a DS9 side scroll, more of an action platformer kind of game, which even include little runabout run and shoot sections as well. So I watched a lot of videos of that, but It's a little, and it's quite rare, quite hard to come by the cartridge for that too. The next one we got, which also surprised me, was there was go back to the previous one. So on the Game Boy, the Nintendo Game Boy and the Sega Game Gear, there were a couple of exclusives, including a tie-in to Generations called Beyond the Nexus, which by all accounts was not great. Its IMDb rating is 3.6 out of 10, so read into that what you will. But, it actually had missions on board the Enterprise D and the Enterprise B. You were fighting Tholians, Romulans, Klingons. There's even a part where you're helping with the search for Dr. Soren. It was just kind of loosely tied into the movie and released as a bit of a cash grab for the Game Boy, which is a very popular console at the time. Did anyone own a Game Boy here?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get a color one. It was a traditional green screen. But I remember playing a lot of Legend of Zelda on the Game Boy. I don't recall any of these games.
No, these surprised me as well. I do not remember there being... there was an actual TNG game, not the Generations one, but just another game that came out at the same time as Final Unity, as a way of cashing in, I guess. But it was apparently equally not as great. But it had Chief O'Brien in it, as you can see from the screenshot there. One wonderful, realistic picture of him. But let's move on. Now, in the mid-90s... We entered an interesting era of video games. With the onset of the CD-ROM, you could fit more information onto the game. So we started to get full motion video games, or as I call them here, full motion video embarrassments. So in 1996, we got Star Trek Klingon and Star Trek Borg on PC and Macintosh. Apparently... Borg was directed by Jonathan Frakes. I'm not quite too sure how true that is, but it did come up in some of my research. And so was Star Trek Klingon. So Star Trek Klingon, it says here it's the ultimate interactive adventure, but you can also see there that it says learn or die. This was an educational Klingon game starring Mark O'Reilly in his role as Gowron. And he acts the absolute bejesus out of it. You can see the whole thing on YouTube. He shows up in a holodeck at the beginning, and he is chewing the scenery. It's really quite full on. But there's lots of sets from TNG, lots of Klingon guest actors that you may remember. I was watching some of it on YouTube, and I'm like, oh, wasn't that older Alexander, and wasn't that this character? And so very, very interesting, but apparently it's awful. It's just awful. And we also had Star Trek Borg, this was an educational one. This was a slightly more interactive adventure. I found this is a funny one to watch because it's on a Galaxy class starship, but it's filmed on all the Voyager sets, with a slightly hacked up version of the Voyager bridge. It's a very, very odd game. You're some kind of lower decker that I could imagine, and Q is harassing you. John Delancey's in it. And again, giving quite a solid performance, but forgettable for the most part. Go watch them on YouTube. They're fun.
Yeah. The guy who's the main character in Star Trek Borg was the actor who played Clara Sutter's father in Imaginary Friend.
There you go. Yeah, there's a few familiar guest stars and actors that show up in these ones, absolutely. Moving on, so we'll touch on this next one pretty quickly. So, slight pickup in quality, Starfleet Academy. If anyone remembers that came out on the Super Nintendo, the Sega 32X, and the far superior PC version, which included full motion video acting, including William Shatner, who was in it. So there's no real kind of main story in this. You are a Starfleet cadet, and you go on various different training missions, blowing up ships. You can buy it on Steam. I did, and it's very hard to play now. Very hard to play, but it was pretty wonderful for the time. You remember this one, Kelvin? You had a bit of a reaction
one
there.
of my favourites. I spent hours playing this game. It did have actually a really strong narrative through it. It had William Shatner, George Takei, and Walter Koenig doing the main character voices, but the bridge crew were all new characters. I remember the main character being quite hot, actually.
The Vulcan one. Yes.
Yeah. Something I remember about this, the space battle aspect was really, really maneuverable with the old joystick on the PC. And there was a trick where you could use your tractor beam and basically smack another ship, like throw ships like they do in Star Trek Picard with the Shrike. So when I saw that on Picard, I was like, that's not new. I used to do that on Starfleet Academy years ago.
The Generations tie-in game, we won't talk too much about that. It was what it was. It follows the story of the movie pretty closely. Bit of a first-person action adventure. I remember borrowing it off a friend and found it almost impossible to get past the first level. It was not an easy game to play. We'll move on. So, little-known DS9 games. These ones came up in my research as well. Harbinger, interestingly, right, when this came up, this is a point-and-click adventure starring most of the cast. They provided all their voices, set sometime around the 4th season. At first, I was like, I don't think I played this. And then when I went and watched the videos on YouTube, I'm like, no, I did play this. I did. I think I, hired it out at some point, and it was very difficult to know what you had to do. But it was a fully fleshed out episode of DS9 in a point-and-click style adventure, which was very popular in the mid-90s. You play as Envoy Bennick, and it's interesting. You arrive on DS9 during an ion storm or something, which I think they use to explain the fact why the whole space station seems empty. And also why when you arrive and the space station's being attacked, that Kira just tells you to just jump on and fire the weapons. So Bennick you're involved in solving some mystery, but they make Bennick do absolutely everything. The Fallen was a one I absolutely had no memory of at all. It was a third-person shooter, much more action-heavy, set more towards the end of DS9's run, using what was called the Unreal Tournament engine, which was a very popular and would have looked really, really good for the time. And yeah, faces based around what you might expect it to be based around. There's a Cardassian plot, there's orbs, there's prophets, but it looked like apparently it was not too bad, but not very well remembered. And then, of course, there was a strategy simulation game tied into the Dominion Wars as well. None of these looking familiar?
I didn't play any of these, but I think it was Sean who just popped up in the chat and says they used to advertise these games on the VHS tapes as the little ads you get before or after the episode. So I do remember that. Remember the names of them. I just didn't play them.
Fair enough.
I started drinking by this point. I turned 18, so maybe my interest in video games was waning by this point. Ready for a resurgence.
And Sam in the chat played Dominion Wars. Apparently it was quite good. I'd never heard of it, Sam, until I did this, so there you go. And Dominion Wars kind of came out, if we move on to the next one, so Dominion Wars came out in what's probably considered a bit of the Golden Age, but before we get to the Golden Age, these ones here are some forgotten titles, including what was obviously the inspiration for the Treksperts quiz, Star Trek The Game Show, the Ultimate Trivia Challenge, hosted by John Delancey, which is as mind-blowing as you might think it is. But I actually watched some clips of it. I'm like, oh, I wish I had this. This looks like it actually would have been fun, full game show style, full video, all that kind of stuff. It would have been a good one to play with friends. Klingon Honor Guard was a first-person shooter, where it's completely set within the Klingon Empire. Again, I didn't play that one, but looked like it could have been a little bit of fun. You had that one? Do you remember much of it?
Embarrassingly, I bought this game and my PC was not fast enough to run it.
Yes.
I mean, kids won't appreciate this now, but I remember a very frustrating experience with this game where it being really jerky and it just, me going, Mom, I need a better computer. But yeah, it was really, really good graphics. I remember lots of going around caves and ice. It was like very Rurapenthe type set.
And rated quite well at the time it came out as well. It's just didn't kind of go down as one of the more memorable games in history. And finally, there's Star Trek Secret of Vulcan Fury. Allegedly, that existed. I could find very little information on it apart from a handful of screenshots, but apparently it was a thing, whatever it was. We'll move on to the next one. So let's start with the golden age of Star Trek games on the PC. So starting from about 1999, Birth of the Federation. I had this one. I played it to death. It was a strategy game, very simple graphics, but you kind of built the Federation up from scratch. You could be the Federation, you could be the Klingons, you could be the Romulans. I think they had several expansions to it. You also had the Starfleet Command series, which had not one, but two, but three games. Again, lots of strategy titles, which I think is where Star Trek games really kind of found their niche a little bit. Did you play any of these ones as well, Kelvin?
No, we're definitely in my hiatus years now. I wasn't playing during these years. I believe I'd just gone to university in 1999, so I was up to all sorts that you can imagine. But I know these very well because online people adore these games like Birth of Federation. I imagine Armada is coming next as well. So all of this was a period I wasn't part of, but I just know how much loved they are.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm similar to you. I started to trail off around here as well. You and I are similar in age. So the interesting one here, though, I found is Star Trek Hidden Evil, which it came out in the Golden Age. Apparently not very good. Marketed as a sequel to Star Trek Insurrection. And received a rating of 4 out of 10 from IGN and 4.5 out of 10 from GameSpot. Interesting little tidbit I found for this one. There was a collector's edition release that included a VHS tape of All Good Things.
Oh, wow.
Weird. Very weird. We'll move on to the next part of the Golden Age. And yes, Armada's had 3 games produced by Rockstar New England. Rockstar New England, everyone, who went on to make the Grand Theft Autos. Well, Rockstar in general went on to make the Grand Theft Auto games. So around about this time, they were giving the license to some pretty good developers, especially for Ravensoft, who did Elite Force. They would go on to do some of the games, I think, in some of the Call of Duty series and stuff like that as well, or at least some of the developers got involved in some of those titles. Elite Force, if no one remembers it, how can you not? It's one of the most iconic first-person shooters in the Star Trek franchise. I reviewed it not long ago on Bargain Bin Gamer, and it's still quite a lot of fun to play today. But it was this. Set on board Voyager. Tuvok puts together an elite force to help battle the Borg. He picks out ragtag, underperforming ensigns and lieutenants and turns them into this ultimate fighting force. Now, I'm pretty sure you played Elite Force, Kelvin, because we've talked about this.
Great memories of this. So long before Wi-Fi, if you wanted to play against another player, you would have to get a massive wire and link up these. So in my very masculine, straight boy student house in my second year, we would all play Elite Force in our bedrooms, but with wires connecting all of our PCs all over this 3-floor building in Manchester. And we loved it. It was so good. Fantastic graphics, great voice acting. I remember if you go in sick bay, the doctor would just be pottering around in the background. If you didn't engage and just let the AI take over, he would start whistling the "I've been working on the railroad" song that he did in the series. It was really good.
Yeah, it had a great free roaming mode where you could just literally walk around Voyager. You could go onto the bridge. I think you can see it in the video on Bargain Bin Gamer. I go up and turn Red Alert on, and Chakotay yells at me. It's got good memories. It's got good memories. There was also a sequel that came out, which was actually set aboard the Enterprise E. Because Voyager had ended by that point, so they set the sequel on board the Enterprise E around about the time that the TNG movies were finishing up. Klingon Academy, one I don't know too well either, but that was another real-time strategy game. Move on to the next one. We're getting to the pointy end now. So a few more. Bridge Commander. I never played it, but apparently Bridge Commander is considered to be the game. Now, there are still people playing this game on YouTube and Twitch today. You take command of the Enterprise bridge and super realistic, or for their time, space battles. I didn't play it. Apparently very well remembered. And Away Team, which was a top-down, turn-based strategy kind of game, which I'm sad I never got to play because it kind of looks like it would have been a lot of fun. And yes, we've got Joe there still playing Bridge Commander. As I said, it's this came out in 2001 or 2002, and people are still actively playing it online today. Wow. I think the key to it was that it kind of made people feel like they were really commanding a proper Star Trek space battle. And there we go. Yeah, still get it on GOG, which is good old gaming. Now let's move on to the next one. Franchise fatigue. It started to get a little shaky from here on, as it did with the franchise in general. Shattered Universe was on the PlayStation 2 and starred Walter Koenig, and we also had George Takei in it as well. So this was set aboard Sulu's Excelsior, and he goes into the Mirror Universe. Except it wasn't very Star Trek-y because you piloted like a one-man fighter, like that was the whole gameplay. And Star Trek's never really been about, fighters and dogfights and all that kind of stuff. That's not the kind of space battles that we signed up for. You've got, and then lots of little games just started appearing. Bethesda, which is a very big developer, had the license at this point, and they were just kind of pumping out just tokenistic kind of stuff. Now, the interesting one on here that I know you remember, Kelvin, and you remember quite fondly is Star Trek Conquest on the Nintendo Wii.
I love this game.
It was fun. Very simple. Yeah.
Like chess. It was strategy of, you get one move, two move, three moves. There's a map. You can see, certain ships would have better sensors, so you could see ahead. So it was about attack, defense, move. You could occupy the Argus array, which basically means you could see everything in the quadrant. I spent a lot of time playing this game.
We'll move on to the next one, just because I know I'm taking up the whole episode. Now, this is my favorite. This was my favorite, the Xbox 360 Star Trek Legacy, which is probably hurts a few people to hear that something was actually called this. By all accounts, it did not review very well at the time, but I loved it. It looked amazing. The ship models were incredible. It has all the voices of every single captain from that era, including like William Shatner, Avery Brooks. Everyone's in it. Mm-hmm. And it's just all ship battles. There is a storyline which kind of spans everything from Enterprise with Captain Archer right up to Voyager, which is neither here nor there. What I loved was just that you could go and set up like your own ship battles, and you could be like, all right, I'm going to have Voyager versus the Borg, or you could even put two Federation ships against each other. It was a lot of fun. You mentioned this one earlier, Kelvin. Did you ever play this one?
This is pretty much the same game as Star Trek Encounters, but the real pull was that they got all of the voice actors for all of the captains. So, even Scott Bakula got involved. And, you start with the NX-01, so it goes through the timeline, and obviously your ships get more powerful as the timeline goes on. But I struggled with this. I think the gameplay was very hard from what I remember. So I know I near finished it. I think I got to the original series and gave up. So I very much enjoyed all the Enterprise content. But I was like, I just want to get the Defiant.
It was a bit hard to master because the ship's all controlled like wheelbarrows filled with cement, right? Like you just like trying to, yeah. Once you got into it though, and I could just see in the chat a lot of people have fond memories of this one, and unfortunately, there's nowhere to buy it today. It is again considered abandonware, so you got to, which means you can go and legally download old versions of it. You've just got to do a bit of creative hacking to get it to work. Last couple of ones, we're getting closer to the modern era now. The big one, Star Trek Online, probably arguably the most successful Star Trek title. Massive multiplayer online game, still going today, still has a huge community. Started around about the time of the Abrams 09 titles as a way of continuing the Prime universe and showing what happened after the destruction of Romulus, and then it continues today. Literally, I think almost every Star Trek actor alive has lent their voice to it. In fact, Leonard Nimoy was the narrator of it originally. Yep. And they've created content based around Discovery, Strange New Worlds. Like it's a huge game. In fact, when I first started going to STLV, the initial group of friends I made were all a big group of Star Trek Online nuts. You'd remember some of them, Amy. They were all like big guild of Star Trek Online freaks who would all show up together, and they spent hours and hours playing this game. I have dabbled, but it requires a lot of your attention and a lot of your time, because it's totally free to play, by the way. You can spend money on it, but, if you want to buy extra bits and pieces, but otherwise, it is thousands of hours of free content. Thousands of hours.
Yeah, I've played this a lot, and it is great. There's great variety in the storytelling and the voice works and the creativity of what they do, but the basic premise of either it's a ship battle or it's just interactive dialogue walking around, there isn't a huge amount of variety in what you can do, the variety of storytelling. Special shout out to my friend Jordan here in the UK over in Leeds. He loves this game. He's a real shithead. So he loves his ships on Star Trek Online. And if you're a collector and a completist, the size of the fleet and the different ways you can customize a ship is unbelievable. So it is a very rich game. I just find the gameplay a bit samey.
Yeah. The space battles is where it's at for me. It does the space battles really well, and there's like so much variety, as you said. So if you've never played it, and if you are a Star Trek fan and a gamer, I find that surprising. It is everywhere. You can get it on every console, it's on PC. Go check it out. So we'll move in. We've got the last two. We're almost at the end. Awkward in between years. They made Star Trek the video game, which was a tie-in to the Abrams universe. Came out around about the Into Darkness time. By all accounts, a very good-looking game. Third-person shooter. You can play cooperative with a friend as either Kirk or Spock. The Enterprise comes up against the Gorn. You're fighting the Gorn for most of the game. It was just very buggy, rushed out as a way to cash in on what was happening with the movies, and again, quite forgettable and reviewed terribly when it came out. But it looks really good. Like, I played it when it came out, and it looks really good. Timelines was the first of many mobile experiences. And Fleet Command as well. And we also have Bridge Crew here, which was a VR game where you could wear the VR headset and take command of the Enterprise bridge in the Abrams universe. But they did release a TNG expansion pack to it as well, so you could take command of the Enterprise D bridge, which I did at Bradley's cottage in Canada. If anyone knows Bradley from STLV, went and hung out there after STLV one year, me in his lounge room with the VR headset on, trying to command the Enterprise like this, knocking over all the furniture. Let's move on to the final one, where we are today. So look, it's unfortunately, it has dried up a little bit. We are not seeing a lot of releases, and there hasn't been a lot amazing. There was a tie-in to Prodigy that came out on everything. I mean, it's not terrible. You play as either Gwen or Dahl, and you are actually battling your way around a Dyson sphere, of all things. It's quite interesting. You've got Resurgence, which has probably been the best one to come out in recent years. So this is a big choose-your-own-adventure style game, interactive narrative, but really good graphics, and it centers around the return of the Takon Empire, it's actually quite a cool story. And then Star Trek Infinity was probably the most recent one to come out, which was what one review referred to it as a spreadsheet simulator, which I think it's sort of trying to relive the glory days of Star Trek strategy games. I know Sam, who's in the chat, told me that he got a refund from Steam within a few hours of playing it. Wow. And they originally planned to support it and release all this new content, so poorly received that they pulled support within the first year. And you can still buy it and download it. It's just not going to get updated. And I was sorry to hear that there's nothing in development at the moment, which is really, really quite unfortunate, because it's such a rich universe to draw on. Like, it should really be at home in gaming, much like Star Wars has got some incredible games. I just feel like there should be a much bigger pipeline, because come on, CBS and Paramount's a great revenue source. Like, give the license to some good development houses, and let's get some good Star Trek games going.
Wonderful.
Whew.
Thanks, Dave.
I am sorry, I took up so much time just then, but that is
because it's great content. Thank you so much. Let's take the slides down. Let's bring in Robin and Kristin. I don't know if either of you two are gamers, but Robin, did you play any of those?
No, I did not. The extent of my gaming, especially back in the day, was probably Mario Brothers and Zelda. I did recently get a Game Boy just for like nostalgic purposes, and I looked into getting the TNG, or I think I posted on the meme page that I was gonna look into getting the TNG game, and someone sent me a YouTube link of a review, and it was kind of dreadful, so I didn't proceed forward with that. But no, I haven't played any of these. I think maybe I tried online, but again, I'm not a gamer, so it was just like too much for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm with you, Robin. I remember, was it the Star Trek Online, Davey, that you said at STLV? And they were like, yeah, come and play. Just let me. And I'm like, and they were so patient and kind with me, but I'm like, I don't get it. So I saw they tried to help me. I was like, oh, okay, I'm sure this is fun for you. And I just walked away.
What about you, Kristin?
The last time I played a video game was GoldenEye, 007 GoldenEye.
Wow.
And I slapped somebody to death because I couldn't figure out how to pick up a stupid weapon. So I slapped someone to death, and then I got stuck in a corner, and I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
That was it. I'm over. So I have not played any of these. I think the one that if I could, I would go way back to the one that's sort of based on the Oregon Trail. Just because that, I don't know, I think it's the nostalgia thing. Born in 84, we're also kind of known as the Oregon Trail generation. So I'm like, you know what? I'd give that a shot. I'd give that.
Oh, we're both 84 babies, Kristin.
You're the rats.
Knew there was a reason that we got along.
Exactly.
There's a lot of nostalgia and good chat going on in the chat there, Davey. So thank you very much. But in terms of new content, Star Trek Timelines does put new content out every single week. And I love that game. I play it all day long, every single day. It's, one of the first apps I put on in the morning when I'm sat in bed with the morning coffee. I spend a fortune on it. It is completely free to play, but you can buy dilithium, you can buy a monthly pack which gives you new crew. And I actually count it as revision. So one of the reasons I do quite well on trivia is probably down to playing Star Trek Timelines every day, because they will just pull random characters from random episodes. And I've got that kind of psychology of, like trading cards. You've got to collect everything. I'm a collector and a completionist. So they keep putting out new things that I have to get. And they've been taking my money for 5 years. It's money well spent. So I would highly advise.
Hold on, is that it?
That's it.
Yeah.
Let's give it a shot.
Give it a go.
Well, we have some other additions from the chat. Peter says there's a mobile Trek game called Star Trek Legends, and that's on Apple Play. And Sean says there's a Lower Decks mobile game. It's addictive, but it's a pay to win.
Oh.
Oh.
They know how to get you.
Brilliant.
Yes. Right. Well, thank you so very much, Davey. This
You're
was
welcome.
so good. You, brought a lot of fun and participation in our chat. It was so fun. So we're going to take a little break.
And then we'll be back with Robin.
Yay!
What shows are on BQN, you ask? Well, here's a rundown of some podcasts you might be interested in. All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast covering all of Trek, hosted by Amy, Christos, Kelvin, and Kristin. Whether you've got Xbox or Nintendo, check out Bargain Bin Gamer, a YouTube show hosted by Davey and Mitch, self-proclaimed gamers who specializes in reviewing and showcasing affordable video games. Grab your popcorn as you listen to Cinema Z, a film discussion and review podcast showcasing films you probably missed but should definitely check out, hosted by Mark and Matt. Don your apron for The Food Replicator, where Matthew eats and drinks his way through Star Trek Cocktail and 3 cookbooks. Beam Aboard Galaxy Class, a Star Trek Next Generation podcast covering all of TNG, hosted by Steven. In order to not repeat it, listen to History with the Szilagys, a snippet of historical events from around the world, hosted by Chrissy and Jason. For the newest Trek coverage, check out Infinite Diversity, hosted by Chrissy and Thad. Curl up with a good book and delve into Beta Canon with Peter, host of the Trek Book Club on Twitter and Bluesky, and his companion Trek Book Club podcast. Test your Trek knowledge with Treksperts Quiz, a Star Trek quiz show hosted and written by Davey and MC. If you're a member of Starfleet Federation or Planetary Union, go check out Union Federation, covering current Star Trek and the Orville, which we all know is really a Trek show, hosted by Kyle, Kevin, Amy, and Haley. Head over to YouTube and watch the Viewscreen live on Sundays, your Trek-inspired talk show hosted by Kelvin and Amy, with new 8-week seasons in the spring and fall. Spill the tea with Christos while he discusses current Trek news and events and explores the world of fandom via guest interviews, all with an LGBTQIA+ perspective on What's the Tea Bev. And for our patron members, we have the Hive Mind with script readings and roundtable discussion, It's Green, a cornucopia of topics, then Amy's Math Moments, a quick look at math moments in Star Trek. You can keep up with all of these shows by following the network at BQN Podcasts on Instagram and Bluesky. We know you have a choice of podcasts to choose from, and we thank you for listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Okay, we are back. Welcome back to the Viewscreen. And today's final guest is Robin. I would love to welcome to the stage and introduce you all. Hey, Robin, thank you so much for joining us on the Viewscreen today. How are you?
I'm great.
Brilliant, brilliant. So I met you in 2019 actually at STLV. And what we've not said already, this is actually a little bit of a reunion for yourself and Davey. Obviously, we're going to talk about your online presence and your memes, but people might recognize you from your fantastic Orion cosplay from over the years, which I'm just going to flag up first. So there you are with Davey and with Bradley and Heath as well. So that is when I first saw you guys, I thought, they look interesting. And there we know, Davey's one of my great friends from across the world in Australia now. And I have stayed connected with you online, Robin, because like so many Star Trek fans or just people who go online and have social media accounts, you've become this legendary celebrity of Star Trek memes. So, you know, for the uninitiated, can you start with what is a meme?
For me, a meme is just a clever or funny shared experience. When I started the meme page, it was originally my personal Instagram page, but then I was posting a lot of sci-fi memes. And I knew like most of my friends, you know, weren't getting these memes. So I kind of made an announcement and I was like, look, you know, I'm just going to use this page to share sci-fi content, you know, hang around if you would like. But yeah, that's kind of how it started. And I feel like that's what a meme is to me. Yeah.
And when was that? When did you start this page?
Oh my goodness. It was over 5 years ago. I think I can't remember exactly. Yeah, it was definitely over 5 years ago. I can't remember. I would have to look at my Instagram to see like what year it was exactly.
Was it a pandemic hobby?
What'd you say?
Was it a pandemic hobby to keep
you?
It
was. It kept me sane. Yes, and even to this day, it's kind of like my joy. You know that I sign in my Instagram feed as kind of, you know, I don't follow that many people on that particular account. So it's kind of all Star Trek. So it's definitely a sign in the morning and it's like my little bit of joy. So yeah, it was definitely, even to this day and through the pandemic, you know, it's my little bright spot of the day.
Yeah. So you started on Instagram. Was that your first place? Okay.
Yeah. Is your presence just Instagram or are you on Bluesky, Twitter, any other places? I know your content from Insta.
Yeah, I'm on Threads and I'm on Bluesky as well. I don't remember to post on those as often. Instagram is kind of like my number one spot.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. So you have been putting out this content daily for all of these years now, and you have amassed 25,000 followers.
Wow.
Which blows my mind. Yep. And the reach of your material, like I get people send your material to me, like saying, "Oh my God, have you seen this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know that." Like Davey said earlier, people just can't believe that we know you and you've got all of this content. So, do you create the content or are you a sharer of other content? How does it work? Is it a bit of a both? How does it work?
It's a combination. A lot of the times I'll share memes that I find just because I know I have that audience that will get it. And then I guess more recently, probably the past 2 or 3 years, I started creating memes myself. You know, I don't have any like Photoshop experience. So a lot of the times with those really Photoshop created ones, you know, I may add text onto it. But a lot of the times it's just kind of me adding like a text bubble to the top of a funny photo or something, or I'll see a meme that's not Star Trek and kind of make it Star Trek. So it's definitely a combination of sharing stuff that I find in addition to making memes and reels when I get the idea for them.
When it comes to like your engagement numbers with a meme, do you find it quite surprising? Do you put something out and you go, "Oh my God, this is going to go viral," and then like maybe your numbers don't hit what you think, and you might share one up or create one, and you think, "I'll just put this out," and it blows up? Just things like that. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason.
Yeah, it's so random. Like, you know, the most recent one, the deep, you know, the Deep Space Fine one, you know, that one got a ton of engagement. And that was one that I just actually posted, you know, the previous year. You know, it just happened to be Valentine's Day and I posted it. So, you know, I never know what's going to hit or not. So it's always fun to just see the engagement and how it goes, because there's no rhyme or reason. Like, I never know like what's going to be a hit and what's going to be a, like, you know, a
yeah. Well, I think it's about time we should take a look. So I went stalking your Instagram and had a look at some memes, and I just grabbed some for the purpose of the show today. I guess we're going to go backwards because this is the final slide. So there's no real order. It doesn't really matter. So for the purposes of people who listen to our show as a podcast, we're going to need to remember to kind of verbally explain what we're looking at visually for people who are actually watching. So this is the Deep Space Fine one that you mentioned. So did you create this one, Robin?
This one I created, like, you know, just I'd seen the idea a few years ago and then I just updated it. So same picture. You know, I didn't come up with the Deep Space Fine. I just like redid the post to make it more modern looking and, you know, not as like pixelated. So created it in the terms of just updated it basically.
Brilliant. And I've just picked out some of the engagement numbers there. So this has been reshared over 5,000 times. So it's amazing. Bargain Bin Gaymer is saying that, yeah, the look on Cisco's face is what makes the meme work so well. Yeah, he's giving a big toothy grin. Yeah, it's such a good meme. Let's have a look at another. So this next one, I love this. This is what if I ever make a meme myself, I like to jump onto a social media bandwagon that is doing the round at the time. So this is the famous show different pictures that you'd show on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Tinder. The gays have one with Grindr on it instead of Tinder. But you chose Will Riker. So is this one of yours or is this a reshare?
This is a reshare because this trend was popular, I don't know, like 2 or 3 years ago. I remember making one for my personal page. So this was just like a reshare. You know, I have this app on my phone called Time Hop, and it brings back, you know, old pictures and stuff like that from my personal photo album or Instagram. So I was like, you know, I always loved this one. So this was definitely a reshare, and it just kind of like took off.
And you were one of the nearly 4,000 reshares, but as a consequence of your massive following, you got over 5,000 likes for this reshare. So you contributed to the popularity of this one massively. Moving on. Yeah, tell us about this one. This is Riker again.
Yeah, this was one that I created. I think at the time I was just stressed. You know, it was just a lot of the times when I make them, there's something going on in my current life that kind of relates to it. So this was one that I like actually created. And I just, when it comes to making these, I just have to find the perfect photo that kind of goes with it. So yeah, you know, this was one of my favorites just because I'm in grad school, I'm stressed all the time. So this was pretty personal to me.
Yeah, so the image, it's Riker from Frame of Mind. Yes. Clearly, if you remember that episode of TNG, is a little worse for wear. What I like, I think there's a theme, what I've spotted in a lot of your content is there's a lot of kind of mental health related subjects, and also not typecasting, but talking like about introverts and extroverts. There's a few examples of that. And it is a subject matter that it's quite difficult to do comedy in these areas. Sometimes it lands, sometimes it doesn't. But I think the balance that you get with the mental health comedy in your memes, I certainly buzz off it, and I just laugh out loud. Next one. What's this?
So there was an online theme that was like, we listen and we don't judge. You know, I saw a lot of reels about it. So you would have like a thread and people would just kind of post maybe unpopular opinions or whatever. So when I saw this, I was like, immediately thought of Q. So I was like, that was my spin and take on it,
Like you said earlier about the Cisco's face, John Delancey's actual expression in that screen grab as Judge Q is again what makes it. You could have just put any picture of Judge Q there, but that particular look, it's brilliant. You got 3,600 likes for that one. This had us all laughing before this next one. This is quite a recent one, isn't it?
Yeah, and this was a reshare. I can't remember where I found it, probably Facebook. But yeah, this was definitely like a reshare, but I thought it was like hilarious when I saw it. So, anytime I come across hilarious Star Trek content, I have to share it with my audience.
Yeah, I think the chain of command, there are 4 lights, has spawned many memes and content over the years. But seeing Gulma Dread sat there actually with glasses on, thinking, oh shit, there are only 4 lights, is brilliant. I've not seen that until a couple of days ago. Okay. This is a brilliant introvert one.
Yeah. So this is, like I said, a lot of the times it's related to my personality. So, I dread these moments where it's like, all right, we're going to go around the room and introduce ourselves. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, like, what am I going to say? I start rehearsing it in my mind. So, that's definitely for all the introverts out there like myself.
Bless you. Well, thank you for stepping outside of your comfort zone for joining us today on the Viewscreen. Amy, do you find when you, as a teacher, you have to recognize that you'll have introverts and extroverts in your class? And it's a really common thing to say, isn't it? Go around and introduce yourself. Are you sensitive to people who would like sit there in dread waiting for it to be their turn?
Well, that's why I like to have a little bit more structure. So it's like, okay, here's I've done it where you take toilet paper in each square, then you have to say something specific. If I give them a structure, I think, at least for me, because I'm more of an introvert, that if I have a structure, then it's easier for me to share like that.
Brilliant. Okay, moving on. Next. Oh,
yeah.
Now, surely you're not the person, Robin, who created the attention Bajoran workers meme. I bet you wish you did.
This was a share one, and it's like I try my best to kind of stay away from current political events or like what's kind of currently going on, because I like it to be a more like joyful space. But when I saw this one, I was just like, oh my goodness, I cannot not share it. So yeah, this was definitely like a reshare that I saw on Facebook.
Yeah, so this is one of the infamous attention Bajoran workers from Civil Defense, DS9.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Dukat announcing that the Gulf of Bajor is now called the Gulf of Cardassia.
Mm-hmm.
And you can fact check this. You're oppressing my freedom of speech. Right? I think we know who this is aimed at. So we'll leave it there. But the attention Bajoran workers series of memes is so popular online.
Yeah.
Okay, next.
Yeah, this was definitely a reshare. Garrett is one of my favorite characters. And, I just had to include that little tidbit at the bottom because like the picture itself is like amazing. I love it. Mm-hmm. But, the kind of caption is what makes it. So a lot of the times that's something that if I had to pick something that does well, usually it is Garrett content. But yeah.
Brilliant. Special shout out to my partner James, who's a massive Frasier fan as well as DS9, so he will love that one. Right, so we've got a data meme.
Yeah, I've had this, like the photo itself I've had for ages, kind of just in my photo like on all your photos. And I just never found an appropriate meme or caption to use with it. And then I finally kind of came up with this caption and I was like, it's me. I was like, it's perfect because it says it's me. So yeah, this is a more recent one.
So this one says, does anyone else feel like they are a lazy perfectionist with ADHD and chronic fatigue who is pretty chill besides the occasional panic attacks and loves their friends but hates people? And it's just data from Oh, what's this from? Oh, it's from We'll Always Have Paris, I
Yeah,
believe, in
I think
season
so.
1, TNG.
Yeah.
And finally, we're
So-
ending with a bit of Reg.
Yeah, Reg is like my spirit animal. If I had to pick a character that I relate to, it's Reg, because you know TNG is sort of like this perfect utopia. Everyone kind of has their stuff together, and then you have Reg, and I'm like, you know, that would be me, you know. So anytime, I love sharing Reg content, especially if I can kind of tie it to mental health. You know, he's my favorite person to put into kind of like my anxiety memes and things like that.
Brilliant, brilliant. I love that. You mentioned just something earlier about where you had that photograph of Data in your camera roll and you were just waiting for ages. So is that kind of your creative process? You'll see an image and then you wait for something topical or witty to use in that. Yeah. Great.
Yeah. So in my camera roll, it's just full of Star Trek pictures and memes and things like that. So yeah, it's just kind of waiting for the perfect caption to kind of go with it.
So what has this kind of new world of online social media, having this account and this fan base, what has it done for you? Has it brought confidence? It sounds like a full-time job, if I'm going to be honest.
It's a little bit of fun, you know. Some days, especially now that I've started school, you know, it'll be 6 p.m. and I haven't like posted anything, and I'm just like, oh, you know, I need to post something. But it's like, also, I kind of want to keep the quality up. I just don't want to like post things to post. So yeah, like for me, it's still fun. It's not something that I see as work or that I have to do. You know, I know people kind of expect it. I've had people DM me and they're like, you're the only reason why I'm still on Instagram.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's like, I know people expect sort of like a daily meme, and I try to deliver that. So that's where a lot of kind of like the resharing comes in. Like if I happen to see something and I haven't created anything, I can always reshare a meme. But it's something I still love and enjoy, you know, and it's like I can't always get back to every DM, but just conversations I've had with the community and stuff, I love it.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, how much engagement are you getting, like, with each meme? Are you replying to every comment? With the number of followers and likes that you're getting, I just can't imagine.
Yeah. It's gotten to the point now where I used to respond to every comment or DM. You know, when it comes to DMs, usually people will send me memes and I'll just like send an emoji or something. But yeah, it's gotten to the point now where I can't get to every one of them. You know, if it's funny, I like it, or, you know, if it's really good, I'll share it to my stories with the meme. But it's still, I spend a lot of time on my phone. So it's not overly overwhelming, but yeah, it's to a point now where it's like I'll respond with an emoji or something like that, you know, unless it's a really good conversation and that conversation just continues.
And what's it like going to conventions since you've been doing this? Do people recognize you? Do you get mobbed?
The last one I went to, you know, it was not overwhelming, but yeah, I would get people that would come up to me and they were like, oh, you're Robin Trex. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, you know, because personality wise, I'm very introverted. So it's kind of not weird. I enjoy when people share that they enjoy the page. But it's kind of like that little bit of celebrity we had when we were cosplaying the Orions. It was easier because, say, you know, Davey has much more of an outgoing personality. So it's kind of like you defaulted to more of the outgoing personalities in the group. Whereas like when it's just me, I'm like, oh my goodness, like, you know, I can feel myself getting red, you know, and building when someone approaches me. But it's fun, you know, it's new, but it's fun. But that definitely happened the last time I was at STLV.
Brilliant. I guess when you're in cosplay, you've literally got a disguise on and you almost become a character.
It's like an alternative personality, you know. So yeah.
Brilliant. Well, let's bring in Kristin and Davey and see if they've got any favorites. I know, Kristin, you're quite partial to a meme, aren't you?
Well, I love the Troy and Barkley one because, again, Barkley just has such a special place in my heart. But I think memes are such a way of letting people kind of know who you are and really expressing your personality in such a clandestine and creative way. Yeah. And I do find that sometimes when you do the self-deprecating ones, which I kind of have the data it's me, I think that opens the door for a lot of good conversations. And I think that's the way to open the door to talk about things like mental health and struggles that we're having, is by, you know what, if I kind of make it funny, but make the funny about me, that makes other people more comfortable to reach that sensitive subject. So I just think they're brilliant. They're absolutely brilliant.
Amazing. What about you, Davey? You must say that's my friend Robin.
Memes are just such good satire. Like I mean, a good meme is a way of satirizing what's going on in the world. Like I mentioned in the chat while Robin was on, memes got me through COVID. Because we had such hard lockdowns here in Melbourne, and people were just sharing memes of all the political stuff that was going on, which really kind of got me through. But I just, on a slight personal note with Robin, I mean, it's kind of been mentioned, Robin and I have known each other for years. We were Orions together at STLV. She was one of the first friends I made at STLV. There we are. Oh, my goodness. But Robin, I can remember on Insta one day you just started saying, oh, by the way, I'm turning this into my meme account. And I was like, oh, she should totally do this. She's amazing at it. She's so funny. And I didn't realize how popular you had become until I saw one of my Australian friends reshare one of your memes. And I was like, oh, I know Robin. We did cosplay together. And he was like, you know her? He was like, oh my God. And I was like, and then I sent the photos of the Orions. He's like, get out. She's like internet royalty in the Star Trek community. And then I saw the followers you would have amassed. So yeah, well done. And also your reels are really funny too. You do the occasional reel. Your little sketches that you do, that they are so good.
I remember, I know we talked about it, or you talked about in the segment, the attention Bajoran worker meme. And that just took off like wildfire. And I remember, I laugh every time I see one come up now, because when it was at the height of its popularity, those memes actually got banned from the Deep Space Nine subreddit. Oh, wow. Finally, the mods were just like, no, we're done. We are done here. We have had enough, because it was too much. Because it wasn't, not all of them were good.
Brilliant. Before you go, I'm going to have to take advantage here of having both Robin and Davey on and say, Robin, you mentioned earlier you will be at STLV in 2025, won't you?
Yes.
Amy will. I will. Kristin, are you doing STLV this year?
No, I won't be doing any trips to the United States for the next 4 years minimum.
Understood. Davey, where were you with STLV? I remember you mentioned we might be able to twist your arm.
As much as I'd love it, as you know, I'm planning a very expensive wedding at the moment, and every spare cent is going into that as we speak.
Some cutbacks. Who needs flowers?
Wait, is it Star Trek themed? Is it a Star Trek themed wedding?
It would be if it were up to me, but unfortunately, as Kelvin knows, Anthony. You remember the look on Anthony's face when he walked through your house and saw how much Star Trek stuff he was there, and he's like, "Oh, thank God you're not this bad."
Well, Davey, Las Vegas is the wedding capital, so I'm just saying.
Oh my God!
I was only asking because I wanted to put my stall out there and my petition to join your little band of Orions for cosplay if you did to Vegas. I've dabbled with Orion cosplay myself on the Star Trek cruise, but I just kind of
well.
I just wanted to recreate and see if I could join you.
Yay!
So maybe after the wedding, Davey, maybe in a future year we can do a crossover.
I'll get back.
Yeah.
I miss it too much to not come back.
Brilliant. Well, Robin, thank you so much for taking time to come onto the Viewscreen and having a chat with you and with us. It's been great to see, the person behind all the memes and the internet fandom. So thank you for that.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Okay. Right. So, Amy, shall we take a look what we've got coming up next week?
Yeah, what do we have coming up next week?
Well, we have another theme next week. So we are swapping our Vulcan salutes for jazz hands, and we are doing music and dance week next week. So we are welcoming friend of the show and network host Joe Keegan, who's in the chat today. Thanks, Joe. Joe's going to come on and talk about some of the music of Star Trek. And then we are also joined by another Brit from up in the Northeast, Stuart Hatton Jr., who is well known out there on the circuit of Mr. Gay World, but also is a professional ballroom dancing judge. So we're very, very honoured that Stuart's going to come and join us too. I will just say there is a massive ballroom dancing event on next Sunday. And he's there with celebrities like Angela Rippon, who's just completed Strictly Come Dancing. So he did say, disclaimer, he might be stuck in traffic, he might be running late. So we hope he can make it. We hope he can make it.
All right. It sounds amazing, and I cannot wait for that. Well, we here have a special com badge giveaway. You can see we are wearing our beautiful badges, and we have a giveaway for season 3. Our associate producer, JJ, who we had on last week, please, if you would like your own version of our Viewscreen commemorative badge, please type Online Week in the chat, and that will signify that I will be reaching out to you and get you your own badge in the mail. So, Online Week, put it in the chat.
Yeah, thanks, guys. We are doing this promotion to get more engagement with live numbers on the show, but mainly just as a little thank you gift. So again, we were very grateful to JJ coming on last week and explaining. We'll say thank you to JJ again. He won't be listening because he's currently getting on a cruise ship at this point in time. But yeah, please don't be putting any contact details or anything in the chat. Keep all that private and offline. Amy will reach out. But if you want one, just type Online Week in the chat there.
Very good. Well, let's bring everyone back on the stage because we want to thank them so much for sharing your amazing skills and love for Star Trek and the fandom. So we also, let's go around the room. Davey, where can we find you?
Everywhere, and lots of places. So on the BQN, you've got me, got Treksperts quiz, and you've also got Bargain Bin Gaymer. Please go and like and subscribe to those YouTube channels. You can also find me in the BQN Discord quite a lot. And also some of my other side projects, davyrights.com, where I have all of my short creative fiction. And if you're into cybersecurity, I also host a podcast called Cyber Voices that I do professionally. So there you go. That's me.
Excellent.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Davey.
And Robin, where can people find you and your amazing memes?
So I'm primarily Robin Treks on Instagram, but I'm also Robin Treks on Threads and Bluesky. But my main area is Instagram. So that's where you kind of find the daily content.
Excellent. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks again, Robin. We'll see you soon.
And Kristin, where can people find you?
I am on Instagram at kstrats, and I just followed Robin. Hey, so excited. Otherwise, I'm really cutting back on how much time I'm spending on socials, and waiting and excited for a potential new photo sharing app coming out from the people who brought us, I believe it is Bluesky. So that should be interesting to see. I'm on Facebook technically, but not really that engaged. My main spot, of course, is Reddit at user Garrick's Fan Club. And I posted, the only photo I posted on Valentine's Day was a photo of me and Andrew J. Robinson. Completely forgot to post a picture of me and my actual husband. Whoops, my bad. And that got like 5,000 likes on the Star Trek subreddit. People love him. And then it got into the whole thing about his role on Dirty Harry as Scorpio. So it was really cool. Anyway, that's where I'm most active, and I find the community just so positive in those subreddits. So if you're not a big Redditor, I do encourage you to give the hundreds of Star Trek subreddits a go. There's even one for Star Trek memes that is really funny. So that's where I mainly hang out online. Otherwise, I've been getting back to old school, going out.
Yes, nice.
Yeah, texting people. If you want my number? Hit me up on Instagram. I would rather text with you, old school, than DM.
You're going to get a pen pal next.
Yes.
You know what? I had pen pals when I was young, and one of them was from Russia, and it was amazing waiting for her letter every month. It was
I did that too.
I love it. There's so much richness of getting offline as we're sitting here on a live podcast. Yes. But nonetheless,
on online week. Thank you so much, Kristin. We'll look forward to seeing you next week.
See you next week.
Yes. And Kelvin, where can people find you?
You can find me online on most of the socials at Kelvin's Timeline. You can find me in the BQN Collective Facebook group. Occasionally on Discord, I dabble. But yeah, you can find me here for the next 6 weeks presenting the Viewscreen. And also when we are done and wrapped up with the Viewscreen, we will be heading back to All Good Things, where we'll have a new episode each week dropping Thursday. So finally, Amy, where can people find you online?
Well, you can continue to hear me on Union Federation. We are going through all the characters of the Orville. It is so much fun. I've been loving revisiting and rewatching. So if you're a fan of the Orville, please check out Union Federation. And of course, here each and every week, I enjoy Bluesky. So you can find me at Counselor Amy, and definitely in our Discord server. That's super fun, and enjoy interacting with the fans there of the network.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Sorry, Amy.
Okay. Yeah. I just want to really throw out there massive thanks to David behind the scenes, who's controlling all of this, making our experience so enjoyable, and to our social media manager, Kit Adzima, for all of your posts. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. We would love to hear what you thought of today's show, and we hope you'll join our Facebook group, the BQN Collective, to continue the discussion there. You can also join our Discord server. You'll find the code to the show in the notes.
Yes, right there. And a huge thank you to our Patreon members. Your ongoing support really helps our show and all the shows on the network. You won't ever hear a commercial. So please, if you would like to support us financially, please go to patreon.com/BQN.
And remember, if becoming a patron isn't your thing, you can still help support the show and the network by just sharing our posts on social media, talking about it with your friends, or hitting the like, subscribe, and alert buttons on YouTube to make sure you never miss an episode of the Viewscreen.
Yes. A huge thanks to everyone in the chat for participating. It was so much fun. Just really, really thank you for participating.
And make sure you join us again next week. We'll be back to our normal time, so we'll be going back an hour. Thanks again to everyone who's joined us today. Thanks for everyone for watching. But for now, it's time to end transmission. See you later, everyone.